recent CBA proposal that we got, there's movement, there's traction. We're finally headed in a direction. So I'm excited. That is the most positive thing.
Finally, there's some genuinely good news in this CBA saga, as Breanna Stewart just shared something every WNBA fan needed to hear. There is movement, there is traction, and things are finally heading in the right direction. After months of tension and very public disputes over revenue sharing, this is the first truly optimistic statement we have heard from a player representative, and it carries real weight because it is coming from Stewart specifically, who has consistently been one of the most measured and level-headed voices throughout the entire negotiation process.
I guarantee you, so many of the responses are for people that I stand by this. I believe most of the old WNBA media and old WNBA fans are not basketball fans because they are saying, sit out until you get exactly what you want. That everybody knows that they're not like that. No one in a CBA gets exactly what they want. And if people saying, oh, you know, the owners aren't going to, like, the owners aren't getting what they want either, or the league aren't getting what they want either. Like, the league have literally, I'm not joking, the league have doubled the max salary since their first proposal. They have doubled it.
Here's the reality that many people do not want to acknowledge. Some of the player messaging during these negotiations has been rubbing fans the wrong way. When you publicly frame a 700% salary increase as a slap in the face because you were hoping for 900% instead, you risk losing a portion of the casual audience, and that is simply basic public relations. The optics of rejecting an offer that could raise max salaries from $200,000 to potentially $1.5 million and describing it as disrespectful can be a difficult sell to the average sports fan, especially when they see players in other leagues fighting for far less. That does not mean the players do not deserve more, because the WNBA is growing faster than anyone predicted, and Caitlin Clark's rookie season delivered viewership numbers that shattered expectations, giving the league real momentum for the first time in its history. However, there is a meaningful difference between firmly advocating for what you deserve and alienating the very supporters you need on your side.
The difference is that the players believe that it's sustainable. The owners aren't willing to take the risk in case it's not. Like, that's, everybody knows. Let's be real, everybody knows. Breanna Stewart should be the only one speaking for it. She's a vet, understands a big gap between. I don't think NECA's pissed, like, said anything really, other than the interview where she was like, complaining about the CBA and is like, the WNBA needs to have more millionaires, and the only thing that will stop the WNBA players who last more than 5 years from being a millionaire. Pretty much.
This is the point that separates longtime basketball fans from the newer WNBA audience that arrived this past season. Because experienced fans understand how collective bargaining works and that no side ever gets everything it wants. NBA players do not get every demand met, and NFL players certainly do not either. The idea that WNBA players should sit out an entire season until ownership completely caves does not reflect how professional sports negotiations function in reality. When you look at the actual movement that has taken place, the league's first proposal set max salaries at $700,000, and the current offer is approaching $1.5 million, which is not the behavior of a league refusing to budge, but rather ownership effectively doubling its initial offer. That signals recognition that the players have leverage and that the league value is rising. So the real issue is not whether players deserve more money, but whether projected revenues can realistically sustain those salary demands over the long term, and whether both sides are prepared to share that risk together.
Owners are finally really acknowledging and being receptive to what we want as players. You know, we all had to kind of put our business hats on and get into the mindset. I'm hoping we get this thing done quickly so that we're not late. And that's the thing I've been telling them. Now that we're part of revenue, now that we're part of a revenue share model, you miss games, it's less money. And not to say we should submit and just say yes to any proposal we don't like, but it's a business now, and this is how business goes. That is like, when it comes down to it, I think Stewie would play in the WNBA for free. Like, obviously, look, it is what it is, but like, hypothetically, I think it's never going to happen, but I do believe Stewie would play in the W.
Pay close attention to what Stewart is actually saying, because she's talking about putting on their business hats and acknowledging that under a revenue sharing model, every missed game translates into less money for everyone. which represents a meaningful shift in tone compared to some of the more aggressive public statements we have heard from other players. Her point that this does not mean they should simply submit and accept a proposal they do not like, but that it is a business now, reflects the perspective of someone who understands the long game. Stewart recognizes that burning down the league to prove a point ultimately helps no one. And while she co-founded Unrivaled to provide players with additional options and leverage, she also seems to understand that ensuring the WNBA season takes place in 2026 is more important than winning every single battle within these negotiations.
This is not a CBA and a lockout to see whether or not this season happens. This is a whole scenario to see whether or not the players and the league can come together to continue the league. That is simply put what it is. Whether or not they're able to come together and continue a league. Whether or not they're able to decide and go out there and say, you know what, we're still going to be okay with the WNBA. And I think that
this is where the situation becomes especially compelling when you consider the power dynamics involved, because there is no such thing as a 2027 WNBA season without first having a 2026 season. And this is not merely a negotiation about whether 1 year of games takes place, but about whether the league continues to exist in its current form at all. A prolonged work stoppage or a canceled 2026 season would stall momentum, freeze expansion plans, force media deals to be renegotiated downward, and potentially erase much of the growth generated during Caitlin Clark's rookie year. That reality highlights a deeper divide among players, as some view Unrivaled as a supplement to the WNBA, a way to stay sharp in the off-season and earn additional income, while others see it as a potential replacement league that players control without NBA ownership involvement. Breanna Stewart appears to align with the first perspective, aiming for Unrivaled to strengthen rather than compete with the WNBA, although there are clearly players who would prefer to see the current WNBA structure dismantled entirely if full control is not achieved.
For Unrivaled was to be a league to supplement the WNBA, and Fee has it in her head that Unrivaled could replace the WNBA. That's, by the sounds of things, that's like kind of what it seems like. Because, and I believe that there's a lot of players that are like that as well. There's a lot of players in Unrivaled that believes, like, I think that, let's just say hypothetically, if the WNBA offered 2 million max salaries, but you had to sign a deal that if you sign your contract is not guaranteed if you're playing in any other outside league. I think Stewie, like, if they put something in that would almost force Unrivaled to shut down, but it would be like, you know, double the money, and the players would all be making really good money, and they wouldn't have to play in the off season. And the WNBA set up something in like a winter league type thing, and training facilities, and you can play. And maybe WNBA bought Unrivaled, and it's kind of like a 3-on-3 thing. It's not like it's.
What makes this particularly intriguing is not just what Stewart is saying, but what she is implying. Namely, that Unrivaled was created to provide players with leverage and additional options rather than to fully replace the WNBA. In her framing, Unrivaled functions as a 3-on-3 off-season league that keeps players sharp during the winter, offers access to training resources, and supplements income, but it is not intended to serve as the primary stage for the sport. However, her co-founder Nafisa Collier appears to project a broader vision through public comments that suggest Unrivaled could potentially stand on its own, and that philosophical difference becomes highly relevant during CBA negotiations because it shapes each side's willingness to compromise. If a player believes Unrivaled could realistically replace the WNBA, there is little urgency to settle since a viable alternative exists, but if it is viewed as complementary, then securing a deal becomes essential because both leagues need to thrive together. Consider a hypothetical scenario in which the WNBA offers $2 million max salaries, but includes a clause voiding guaranteed contracts for players who participate in outside leagues during the off-season, effectively forcing Unrivaled to shut down or scale back into a non-competitive training operation. Stewart might accept that arrangement for significantly higher pay and the elimination of overseas travel, allowing players to focus entirely on the WNBA season. Yet it is far less certain that Collier or those who see unrivaled as a pathway to independence from NBA ownership would agree, and that underlying tension captures the heart of the divide.
Absolutely. Everyone was like, oh, the league gave the exact same proposal back, and it's like, man, they literally offered like a 12% increase on salaries on top of it. And then the league, obviously the players can probably come back higher. And I do personally think when it comes down to it, they might accept a net rev split if the salaries are high enough. I think if the salaries are high enough, they might accept a net rev split as a supplement to the salaries. And my guess is that as of right now, the salary cap went from, I think it was like 3.5 at the start to now like nearly 6.
The salary cap progression reveals a great deal about how these negotiations are truly unfolding, beginning with the league's initial proposal of $3.5 million per team and now climbing to an offer that is approaching $6 million per team, which is not a stalemate, but clear and substantial movement. Many observers expect the final number to land around $7 million per team because that figure aligns the financial math in a way that works for both sides, as a $7 million team salary cap would allow for max contracts of roughly $1.75 million. That would represent an extraordinary leap from the current $200,000 max salary, marking one of the most dramatic increases ever seen in a single collective bargaining negotiation across professional sports. Such a shift would instantly elevate dozens of WNBA players into millionaire status, directly addressing concerns voiced by Nafisa Collier about the league lacking enough millionaire players and underscoring how transformative this deal could ultimately be.
Where you can have a 1.75 million max base. And like, imagine going from 200k to 1.75 million. And by the way, people are talking about 1.75 million. There are still a lot of players being underpaid at that. There are a lot of players being underpaid. Like, some of those Liberty players are being underpaid. Caitlin Clark's being underpaid. Angel Reese is being underpaid. But there's also going to be the likes of Alyssa Thomas, who, based on the relevancy for the sport, they're going to be overpaid. Or a Tash Cloud making 1.5 million is going to be an overpay, where these players aren't generating 1.5 million worth. But there are players that are going to be making 1.75 million that are going to be generating 80 million worth over the course of that year. And that's kind of what one player in Caitlin, but that kind of just the way things go. It's kind of the way sports are. When it comes to max contract and salary cap, there's always going to be players making way more than the value they bring, and there's going to be players making way less, and that's just an unfortunate thing of it all. But I do think 1.75, if they could get it up to that, which I think is very doable, like there's no reason they shouldn't. Well, to be fair, that's like 10 years worth of unrivaled, the average unrivaled contract.
Here is the uncomfortable truth about max contracts and salary caps. There will always be players who are significantly underpaid relative to the value they generate, and others who are comparatively overpaid. And that reality is not unique to the WNBA, but inherent to every capped league. Even at $1.75 million, Caitlin Clark would likely still be underpaid, given the massive revenue impact she creates through ratings, merchandise, and ticket sales, while a player like Natasha Cloud earning $1.5 million could be viewed as overpaid relative to the specific revenue she drives. Some Liberty stars, such as Breanna Stewart and Sabrina Ionescu, have been underpaid compared to their true market value. And Angel Reese outperformed her rookie scale deal as well, yet that imbalance is unavoidable in a system with salary caps and maximum contracts. The alternative would be eliminating the cap and max structure entirely, which would allow large market teams to dominate spending and leave small market franchises unable to compete. The Players Association has generally prioritized competitive balance over maximizing individual earning potential, a choice that likely supports the league's long-term health, but ensures that top stars will always earn less than their full market impact would justify. At the same time, role players and veterans who are not primary revenue drivers benefit greatly from this structure, as someone like Alicia Clark earning $1.5 million under a new CBA would represent a remarkable outcome for her career, even if she is not directly moving ticket sales or television ratings. And that is the fundamental trade-off embedded within a capped system.